Hi, I'm Daniel Ek, the founder and CEO of Spotify. Wherever you're watching from, wherever you are in the world, we're really glad you're joining us. Today, we want to show you what's next for Spotify and for audio. But before we talk about where it's all going, let me say a few words about where it all started. I spent my childhood in Rågsved, a short distance from here, and at night, I'd stare up at the ceiling in my room and I'd dream of faraway places. Someday I'd hope I'd travel the world. But until that day, it was music that carried me there. Before I ever got to Britain, Led Zeppelin showed me around. Before I ever set foot in the United States, Bob Dylan gave me a tour. With nothing but a pair of headphones, music took me places I'd never been. But something about sound still transfixes us all. The desire to create and connect through audio is foundational to the human experience. And I don't believe it's a coincidence that the basic unit of music, the beat, echoes the human heartbeat. For Spotify, audio is our history and it's our future. In 2006, the music industry was collapsing. Piracy was killing it. The idea that all music should be free for the taking, no matter the cost and effort, destroyed the careers of a lot of working artists. We believed there had to be a better way, so we founded Spotify. And we knew our platform had to be nothing short of revolutionary if we were going to stand a chance of getting people to abandon piracy and pay for music again. Spotify would have to be faster, more responsive, and more personalized. And it would have to be a more exciting and engaging way to listen to music. 15 years later, we are more committed than ever. We still believe in audio first. We still want to be the soundtrack to your life. And if you're an artist or a podcaster with a song to share, an album to drop, or even a story to tell, we want Spotify to be the best place for you to find an audience. And it is. Because our platform is wired for connection. It's connecting listeners with the audio they love and connecting creators with the fans who find meaning in their art and who won't just follow their career, but will sustain it. These goals reinforce each other. A more connected, more engaged community of listeners creates more demand and more opportunities for artists and podcasters to make a living from their work. And the more people who are creating, the more there is for our users to discover. It's a virtuous cycle, a flywheel, and it's propelling Spotify and the audio industry forward. Over the past decade and a half, what we've seen and helped drive is an audio renaissance. And I use that word intentionally. It really is a renaissance. And what it is not is a restoration. We're moving forward, not turning the clock back. People love to look back fondly on the music industry of 2 decades ago. They are of the record store and FM radio, a time before piracy. And I understand the nostalgia, I get it. As a kid, I remember spending hours at my local record store, flipping through the bins and selecting what albums to buy. But looking back, what really strikes me is how limiting it was. The amount of music you could discover back then was limited by shelf space and floor space, by the physical distribution capabilities of music companies, by the personal preferences of our radio DJ, and of course, by where you lived and how much you could afford to spend. There were also fewer possibilities for creators. The shelves and the airwaves could only support so many artists, and industry gatekeepers could only invest in so many artists. A lot of great music was put out in the 70s and 80s and 90s, but unfortunately, many more never got a chance. Over the past 2 decades, streaming has fundamentally changed the audio ecosystem. It's lowered barriers to entry and it democratized access to audio for listeners across the world. More creators are creating and succeeding than ever before. 20 years ago, the music industry was a pretty restrictive club. Unless you had the resources to produce a physical product and distribute it to record stores and get your song on the radio, it was difficult to break through. Case in point, back in 2002, just over 30,000 albums were released in the US, and only 8,000 sold more than 1,000 copies, representing 98% of sales of new releases. By comparison, in 2020, 1.8 million albums were released on Spotify in the US, and 6 times as many albums represented 98% of the streams for these releases. So it's not just the possibility that more artists can be heard by a global audience, it is that more artists are being heard. This means that meaningful income is flowing to more artists than ever before. When Spotify launched in Sweden in 2008, the combined market of physical and digital music sales amounted to about 17 billion. Streaming represented 300 million of that, or only 2% of the sales globally. And at the industry's low point in 2014, the combined total dropped another 3 billion to 14 billion. But with streaming, we've helped the global music industry go from contraction to growth. In 2019, the total revenue of the recording industry was just over 20 billion. And more than half of that revenue, 11.4 billion, came from streaming. And here's what that audio renaissance looks like from our front row seats of Spotify. Since 2008, Spotify has expanded from 1 market to 93, and from thousands of listeners to more than 345 million, and from paying out approximately 500,000 to creators in 2008 to paying out more than 5 billion in 2020. Our platform has grown exponentially, and it's going to keep growing. We didn't want to confine our app to some walled garden, to just a few devices. Our users have a nearly limitless choice of devices. So to meet them where they were, we needed to be everywhere. Today, Spotify is available on more than 2,000 different devices, everything from smartphones to smart speakers, and from car audio systems to gaming consoles. And that spirit of innovation is stronger than ever. 3 years ago, Spotify had 3 million creators on our platform. Every year since, that number has increased from 4 million to 5 million to 8 million at the end of 2020. I believe that by 2025, we could have as many as 50 million creators on our platform, whose art is enjoyed by a billion users around the world. And that's not a prediction or a goal. It's really both a challenge and a great opportunity. We're in the midst of an explosion of audio creation, the early innings of what we see as a truly global creative economy. In the coming years, as more and more people become audio creators, Spotify will enable the best of them, the ones that are highly driven, highly talented, and resonate with a group of fans to grow their audience and build their careers on our platform. We want to be the place where educators and entrepreneurs and storytellers and authors, well-known personalities and artists are all able to reach out and touch the world through audio. And that brings me to Spotify's mission: to unlock the potential of human creativity by giving 1 million creative artists the opportunity to live off of their art and billions of fans the opportunity to enjoy and be inspired by it. That's been our aspiration, the point on the horizon that we're striving toward. And yeah, it's ambitious, but it's also essential. If the creative economy is going to thrive, we need to ensure that audio creation can be a profession and not just a side project. Today, we're going to show you how we're empowering the most talented creators in the world to turn their passion into a profession. But before I pass the mic, I wanted to say a few words about the goal of bringing audio to the world. Spotify is currently available across nearly half of the world, but there are still millions of creators and billions of listeners who don't yet have access to Spotify. So I'd like to share some news. Over the next few days, we'll be expanding Spotify's global footprint significantly. This move will make Spotify available to more than 1 billion people in new markets around the world, with nearly half of them already using the internet. A little later, we'll tell you more about what that will mean And when we do, I hope you'll remember it's just the beginning. Years from now, I believe we'll see this moment for what it really was, an overture, the first brilliant moments of a new golden age of audio. For creators, for listeners, for Spotify, for audio, the best is yet to come.